Skelter Nightmares and its sequel were unexpected sleeper hits from the developer Compile Heart. These titles presented grave circumstances and disturbing subject matter that granted this new IP a distinct identity compared to the team's other titles. Skelter Finale finally comes west to round off this trilogy for invested fans.
I can't.
Skelter Finale follows Jack, the Blood Maidens, and numerous supporting characters as they finally escape the underground and reach the surface. However, there's nothing really to celebrate as this new area is just as hellish as the underground. The environments are littered with mounds of human corpses and frightening threats such as Massacre Pink. The Blood Maidens prove powerless against this new threat and find themselves in, of course, gel towers. This is where one of the primary mechanics of Finale comes into play. Players will be switching, or zapping as the game calls it, between different parties to progress the story. For example, some parties are in the same gel tower while others are entirely separate ones, traversing various dungeons. Then, of course, there are moments when the group reunites, but this general philosophy of zapping mainly retains throughout the game. I found this necessary due to the high number of characters in the cast. Having every playable character reunited from the beginning would have likely resulted in an unfathomable effort to create needed combat balance and characterization. Additionally, breaking the party up works thanks to how different each party's personality and interactions were. As a partial consequence though, the pacing of the core narrative itself is rough, though it's not much different from the previous entries. The focal point of the story is occasionally forgettable with how distinct these events seem to take place from one another, especially amid several character-centric dilemmas. This execution is far from a ruining factor because I find the cast endearing, however the tension within the plot loses itself after a while, which is a shame because the opening hours set up an immensely grotesque, in-your-face image of the antagonists. Switching between perspectives alleviates potential tedium that could have arisen for players from the previous games due to the variety of shining character moments. Though hours can pass without any notable events depending on how adamant the player is about exploring and level grinding within a dungeon. This just highlights how accessible this game is for different style of players. The paced out story doesn't hinder the experience because Skelter has always been about the dungeon crawling and battles, and Finale is no different. Dungeons are conceptually well designed with many diverging pathways and thought-provoking light puzzles. Progression in these labyrinths isn't overwhelming or child's play. Further, the Blood Maidens have field actions and individual traits. For instance, Red Riding Hood can cut apart impeding wires, and Little Mermaid can do things like diffuse flames. Unfortunately, I found the dungeons to rely on these gimmicks a little too heavily. Rather than utilizing these specified practical field actions in moderation, select actions are used to the point where they become almost humorous. In the second chapter, for example, an entire floor has tiles covered by flames, and though players aren't expected to use Little Mermaid's ability on every single tile, it is needed to an absurd degree. Another system allows parties to place items in shareable storage boxes within dungeons. This mechanic is paramount to progression since the party can find a key that another party needs. Ultimately, dungeon design and narrative wield conceptually interesting ideas, usually executed well, but face needless roadblocks that could have been sidesteps or better addressed. Battles in Skelter Finale utilize a job system and it's damn addicting. However, delving into the specifics of the job systems and various other battle mechanics would be a bit much. Generally speaking, there's a vast amount of player agency and choice within character builds, but it isn't in a toss you to the wolves sort of way. Dungeons contain chests and valuable equipment that can subtly aid players in deciding which character should pursue a battle. Additionally, the multiple parties make character customization more approachable because the player cast is spread out in uncomplicated ways. There isn't one massive conglomerate of characters from the get-go to decide an optimized setup and the like. I never found myself overwhelmed by the difficulty, at least on normal mode, and the number of tools plus straightforward methods of grinding was way too enjoyable to frustrate me. Commissions or side quests are available for juicy rewards, and the gel trial system allows players to place restrictions on themselves to gain more potent perks while in dungeons. One trick I love performing is stacking up multiples of these trials all at once and simply beginning a grinding session at the beginning of the first floor where I can quickly leave for a free heal and then come back. Unfortunately, this method usually restricts me to the easier enemies of the dungeon for safety's sake. Still, it is an effective way to stock up on blood crystals and experience when first arriving in a new area. Special events may occur at the party's respective base camps, aside from the expected areas like upgrading facilities and shops as denoted with an exclamation point. These brief asides aid in the growing attachment to the varied character relationships and inner conflicts, while also occasionally granting new skills. An affinity system is presented as well, through affection for the love interest and trust for friends. As tedious as it may be to build these gauges to their maximum, I find the act akin to the joy of leveling the characters themselves. Dungeon crawlers are a grind by design, and these elements enforce the addictive aspect of the genre. The soundtrack of Mary Skelter Finale truly astonished me, I must say, and it deserves acclaimed mention. Of course, the previous entries had a great soundtrack as well, but Finale blows them out of the water. The field themes are melodic and enchanting, but the battle themes are genuinely exceptional. They are instantly climactic with stupendous violin usage and differ from party to party. Mary Skelter Finale is a worthy conclusion to this turbulent saga of struggles against seemingly impossible to overcome odds. The cast is spread apart and segmented but undoubtedly bound together by the systematically cruel yet compassionate whims of fate. The gameplay is arguably at its highlight in this entry, and the returning systems are satisfyingly addicting with the inclusion of the zapping mechanic and standout character interactions. Even when accounting for the poorly paced main narrative and overindulgent dungeon design, this is absolutely a finale worth experiencing in all its unabashed climactic glory. Noisy Pixel is giving Mary Skelter Finale an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.